Ladies and gentlemen, as we open the pages of history, we commence our journey with an introduction to Thomas Jefferson, a figure emblematic of American ingenuity and the complexities of human virtue. Jefferson's life is a mosaic of profound accomplishments and contradictions, each piece reflective of the era in which he lived and the ideals he espoused. Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, remains a colossal figure not only in American history but also in the broader context of democratic development worldwide. His contributions extend beyond the mere confines of political office. Jefferson was a philosopher, architect, archaeologist, paleontologist, and an avid advocate for education, embodying the Enlightenment's ideals. His vision helped lay the foundational principles of democracy, individual rights, and self-governance that continue to influence nations globally. Jefferson's most celebrated accomplishment, the drafting of the Declaration of Independence, is a testament to his belief in liberty and justice. This document not only declared the American colonies' independence from British rule but also set forth a new standard of governance, government by the consent of the governed. Throughout his multifaceted career, Jefferson assumed many roles. He was not only a president but also served as the vice president, the Secretary of State, and the governor of Virginia. Abroad, he represented his country as the minister to France, a role in which he excelled at diplomatic negotiations and cultural exchanges that strengthened U.S.-French relations. Beyond politics, Jefferson was a pioneer in the realms of architectural design and agriculture. His estate, Monticello, is an architectural marvel that he designed and redesigned over more than 40 years, reflecting his unending quest for improvement. It stands today as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, visited by thousands each year, emblematic of Jefferson's taste and intellectual spirit. In education, Jefferson's legacy is immortalized in the establishment of the University of Virginia, an institution he founded to promote public education and create leaders informed by reason and critical thinking. This achievement highlights his commitment to educating future generations, a cornerstone for a sustainable democracy. As we progress through today's lecture, each chapter of Jefferson's life will offer us insights not only into his personal evolution but also into the development of the United States during its formative years. His story is a powerful reminder of the enduring impact one individual can have on the course of history. Let us continue, bearing in mind the profound effects of his life's work, as we uncover the layers that make Thomas Jefferson a perennial figure of study and admiration. As we delve into the formative years of Thomas Jefferson, we uncover the roots of his intellectual fervor and the early influences that shaped his philosophies and convictions. Born on April 13, 1743, in Shadwell, Virginia, Jefferson was ingrained from a young age in the vibrant, albeit complex, tapestry of colonial American life. Thomas was born into the Jefferson family, part of the Virginia planter class, inheriting both privilege and responsibility. His father, Peter Jefferson, was a successful planter and surveyor, which provided the young Jefferson with a prosperous upbringing. However, it was his father's map-making and land-developing skills that perhaps first introduced him to the meticulous attention to detail that would later characterize his own endeavors. Tragically, his father died when Thomas was merely 14, leaving him to inherit an extensive estate and the responsibilities that came with it. Thomas Jefferson's educational journey began at home under the guidance of tutors, but he soon entered a formal school setting where he excelled in classical languages. At the age of 16, he enrolled at the College of William and Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia, diving deep into the study of mathematics, metaphysics, and philosophy under the mentorship of Professor William Small. It was Small who introduced Jefferson to the Enlightenment ideals, which emphasized reason and science, and encouraged his lifelong pursuit of learning across various disciplines. At William and Mary, Jefferson also came under the influence of George Wythe, a leading lawyer of the time, who would become a lifelong mentor and friend. Wyth's influence was profound, steering Jefferson towards a legal career. Through Wyth, Jefferson learned not just about law, but also about the broader implications of justice and ethics, which would profoundly shape his political ideals. The years at William and Mary were transformative for Jefferson. He absorbed the Enlightenment's ideals, which championed liberty, democracy, and republicanism. These ideas became the bedrock of his philosophical and political life, profoundly influencing his future work on the Declaration of Independence and his overall vision for America. Additionally, Jefferson's education was not confined to academia. His social education at Williamsburg, interacting with Virginia's elite, provided him an intricate understanding of political and social networking, which later proved invaluable in his political career. As we reflect on Jefferson's early life, we see the emergence of a thinker, shaped by the confluence of enlightened philosophy and the practical mentoring of legal minds. This blend of influences equipped him with the tools to become a formidable leader and thinker, whose ideas and actions would leave an indelible mark on the fabric of American history. As we proceed, let us consider how these early experiences sowed the seeds for the principles he would later champion and the controversies he would navigate throughout his lifetime. Transitioning from the formative academic settings and personal studies into the turbulent waters of public service, Thomas Jefferson began his public career, one that would see him leave indelible marks on both his nation and the broader world. His entry into public life was not merely a career choice, it was a calling, driven by his burgeoning belief in liberty and justice. Thomas Jefferson's first formal foray into public service began in 1769 when he was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses, the legislative body of the colony of Virginia. This period was marked by increasing unrest and tension between the American colonies and Great Britain. Jefferson, a meticulous writer and thinker, used his skills to draft resolutions and legislation that would begin to articulate the colonial grievances against British imperial policies. In these early years, Jefferson established himself as a gifted legislative craftsman. His work not only reflected his intellectual abilities but also his growing commitment to American independence. He was particularly influenced by the passing of the Intolerable Acts in 1774, which prompted him to author a summary view of the rights of British America. In this work, Jefferson laid out a clear and bold argument for the colonies' right to govern themselves, a precursor to his more famous writings. Jefferson's contributions during his time in the House of Burgesses were significant not only for their immediate legislative impact but also for setting the stage for his future endeavors. His legal work, notably, began to reflect his deepening interest in the rights of individuals and states. As a practicing lawyer, he took on cases that often touched on issues of rights and governance, further honing his legal philosophy and practice. His public service took on greater national significance as he moved from local governance to the national stage. In 1775, Jefferson was selected to represent Virginia at the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia. This role was pivotal, placing him at the heart of the burgeoning Revolution. It was here that Jefferson's skills as a draftsman of policy and principle were recognized at a national level, ultimately leading to his selection in 1776 to draft the Declaration of Independence. Jefferson's early public life is a testament to the power of principled leadership and intellectual rigor. His legislative and legal endeavors were not just about addressing immediate issues but were deeply imbued with a vision for a just and independent America. As we reflect on this phase of his life, we see a young Jefferson emerging as a voice of reason and a beacon of the ideals that would later define the United States. This period set the stage for his more noted accomplishments and defined the trajectory of his lifelong commitment to liberty and governance by the people. As we continue, let us carry with us the understanding of how Jefferson's early political engagements laid the groundwork for his defining contributions to America and its founding principles. As we delve into one of Thomas Jefferson's most seminal contributions, the drafting of the Declaration of Independence, we encounter a pivotal moment not only in his life but in the annals of world history. This document, crafted in the heat of revolutionary fervor, would come to symbolize the birth of a nation and the aspirations of a people yearning for self-governance. The year 1776 was fraught with revolutionary tension. The American colonies, aggrieved by years of oppressive British rule marked by unfair taxes and lack of representation, reached a boiling point. The need for a formal declaration arose from a necessity to unite the colonies under a common cause and to articulate this cause to the world. It was against this backdrop that the Second Continental Congress convened, and Jefferson, known for his eloquent pen and clear articulation of liberty, was tasked with drafting a document that would announce and justify the colonies' decision to seek independence. Jefferson was chosen to be part of a committee of 5, which included luminaries like John Adams and Benjamin Franklin, to draft the Declaration of Independence. However, it was Jefferson who was given the primary responsibility for the document's creation due to his well-known prowess in writing and his strong stance on individual rights and freedoms. Sequestered in a small room in Philadelphia, Jefferson embarked on the monumental task of drafting a document that would need to rally disparate colonies, appeal to international allies, particularly France, and justify the severance from British rule. Drawing on his deep knowledge of Enlightenment philosophies and his own previous writings, Jefferson crafted a preamble that has resonated through the ages, asserting the self-evident truths that all men are created equal and are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence, adopted by the Congress on July 4, 1776, was immediately recognized as a groundbreaking work, both in its eloquence and its boldness. It not only declared the colonies free from British rule but also laid out a radical vision of governance based on the consent of the governed, a principle that would influence democratic movements worldwide. Jefferson's contributions went beyond the mere drafting of the document. His words became a rallying cry for freedom and have continued to inspire countless individuals and movements for equality and justice. The Declaration's influence persists in its symbolic value as a statement of human rights and its practical impact on the development of the American government and other democratic institutions around the world. As we reflect on this momentous achievement, it is crucial to recognize how Jefferson's intellectual rigor and his commitment to the ideals of liberty and equality shaped a document that not only marked the birth of the United States but also provided a template for future declarations of human rights globally. This document, emblematic of Jefferson's legacy, encapsulates the highest ideals of the Enlightenment and the new American ethos. Following his instrumental role in the drafting of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson's public service continued as he was elected the governor of Virginia, serving from 1779 to 1781. This period was marked by the continuing challenges of the American Revolutionary War, and Jefferson's governorship would test his leadership abilities under the pressures of both war and governance. Jefferson's tenure as governor of Virginia was one of immense challenge. The state, a crucial theater in the Revolutionary War, faced not only the external threat of British invasion but also internal difficulties such as resource shortages, political instability, and the logistics of supporting a wartime effort. Jefferson's approach to these issues was characterized by his emphasis on state rights and limited government, principles he held dearly but which also faced criticism for their effectiveness during wartime. One of the notable achievements of his governorship was his efforts to reform the state's legal codes. He worked on abolishing primogeniture and entail, laws that significantly shaped property rights, making them more equitable and less aristocratic. These reforms were aimed at promoting a more democratic distribution of land and wealth, Jefferson also advocated for the separation of church and state, pushing for religious freedom and laying groundwork that influenced future American values. The Revolutionary War presented significant trials for Jefferson's administration. His leadership during this period was often criticized, particularly regarding his handling of the British invasion of Virginia in 1781. The rapid advance of British troops under Benedict Arnold and later Lord Cornwallis stretched Virginia's defenses. Jefferson faced harsh criticism for the perceived inadequacies in the state's preparedness and response, which culminated in his fleeing from Monticello just as British troops were nearing. Despite these criticisms, Jefferson's governorship must also be viewed through the lens of his later contributions. His experiences during this turbulent time informed his views on federal versus state powers, which he later articulated as Secretary of State and President. Jefferson's advocacy for a robust state militia and his skepticism of a strong centralized military were rooted in the challenges he faced during these trying times. Thomas Jefferson's tenure as governor of Virginia is a complex chapter in his life. While he faced criticism and challenges, his commitment to reforming state laws and advocating for principles like religious freedom and the reformation of land laws contributed significantly to the shaping of American democratic values. These years also underscored the tensions between idealism and practical governance, a theme that would recur throughout his political career. In retrospect, Jefferson's governorship provides a nuanced perspective on his political ideologies and leadership style. It illustrates how the crucible of leadership during war and crisis can shape a leader's philosophies and actions in profound ways. As we explore this period of Jefferson's life, let's appreciate the intricate balance of power, principle, and pragmatism that defined his approach to governance. Following his challenging tenure as governor of Virginia, Thomas Jefferson embarked on a diplomatic mission that would expand his horizons and profoundly influence his perspectives on government and society. In 1784, Jefferson was appointed as a minister to France, joining his contemporaries Benjamin Franklin and John Adams in the complex theater of European politics. His years in France, from 1784 to 1789, coincided with a critical period leading up to the French Revolution. Jefferson's time in France was marked by an intensive cultural and political exchange that deepened his appreciation for European arts, architecture, and governance. Living in Paris, he was exposed to French philosophy, literature, and the fine arts, which enriched his aesthetic and intellectual sensibilities. This European influence would later be evident in his architectural designs and cultural pursuits back in America, particularly in the design of his beloved home, Monticello, and the campus of the University of Virginia. Politically, Jefferson's tenure in France was invaluable. He observed firsthand the burgeoning unrest that would lead to the French Revolution. These observations provided him with a unique perspective on the nature of revolution and the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity that echoed his own ideals enshrined in the Declaration of Independence. As minister, Jefferson's role was not only to maintain the critical alliance with France but also to negotiate trade agreements that were vital for the newly independent United States. His negotiations helped to stabilize American trade with European nations during a period of significant economic vulnerability. Moreover, his diplomatic efforts contributed to strengthening the Franco-American alliance, which was crucial during the early years of American independence. Jefferson also used his position to advocate for American products and culture, promoting American tobacco, rice, and fur, among others, in the European market. His efforts to showcase American resources helped establish the United States as a significant economic entity in Europe. Jefferson's diplomatic service in France was a formative experience that broadened his understanding of international relations and political philosophy. The insights gained during this period influenced his later policies as Secretary of State and President, especially his support for the French Revolution and his skepticism towards monarchical and aristocratic systems. Jefferson's experiences in France cemented his beliefs in the principles of democracy and republicanism, which he continued to advocate throughout his political life. Reflecting on Jefferson's years as minister to France, we see a period of profound personal and professional growth. His experiences abroad enhanced his perspectives on governance and culture, which he integrated into his later endeavors in shaping the American Republic. This chapter of his life underscores the importance of international experience in shaping a leader's views and policies, demonstrating how Jefferson's time in France enriched his contributions to American political thought and governance. After his influential tenure as minister to France, Thomas Jefferson returned to the United States, where he soon embarked on another significant chapter in his public service career. In 1790, he was appointed as the first Secretary of State under President George Washington. His term in this role, which lasted until 1793, was marked by pivotal debates that shaped the nascent American government's foreign and domestic policies. As Secretary of State, Jefferson faced numerous challenges and controversies, primarily centered around the ideological and policy disputes with Alexander Hamilton, the Secretary of the Treasury. Jefferson's vision of America emphasized agrarianism, states' rights, and minimal central government, contrasting sharply with Hamilton's preference for a strong central government and an economy based on banking and industry. One of the most significant issues during Jefferson's tenure was his opposition to the creation of the Bank of the United States, a central part of Hamilton's plan to stabilize and improve the nation's financial system. Jefferson argued that the Constitution did not grant the government the power to establish a bank, reflecting his strict interpretation of the Constitution. This debate over the bank was emblematic of broader conflicts between the Federalists, led by Hamilton, and the Democratic Republicans, led by Jefferson, which would shape American politics for decades. Jefferson also navigated complex foreign policy issues during his time as Secretary of State. The French Revolution had deepened the ideological divide, with Jefferson sympathizing with the French revolutionaries against Hamilton's more cautious approach. This sympathy influenced his stance on the Genet affair, where the French envoy Edmond Charles Genet tested U.S. neutrality by recruiting Americans for the war against Britain. Jefferson's management of this situation showcased his diplomatic skills and commitment to maintaining neutrality, despite his personal sympathies. The ideological battles with Hamilton were not just about specific policies but reflected deeper philosophical differences regarding the direction of the United States. Jefferson feared that Hamilton's plans would lead to a government dominated by the wealthy elite, undermining the Republican ideals he cherished. These disputes eventually led to the formation of two distinct political parties, the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans, with Jefferson emerging as a leading figure of the latter. Jefferson's tenure as Secretary of State was foundational in laying the groundwork for American foreign policy and in defining the political landscape of the new nation. His advocacy for limited government and individual rights influenced many subsequent policies and remained a central theme of his political philosophy. Reflecting on Jefferson's role as Secretary of State, we see a period rich in foundational debates that shaped the young nation's identity. His conflicts with Hamilton, while often contentious, spurred significant discussions that clarified and defined the powers of the federal government. These debates also highlighted the emerging political ideologies that would define American politics. Jefferson's legacy as Secretary of State is thus marked by his profound impact on both domestic policy and the ideological framework of American governance. As we continue to explore Jefferson's life and contributions, let us appreciate the depth and complexity of his influence during these formative years of the United States. As we explore Thomas Jefferson's ascent to higher realms of political influence, we arrive at a pivotal moment in his career and American history, the vice presidency and the dramatic election of 1800. This period not only defined Jefferson's political legacy but also profoundly shaped the American electoral process and party politics. Thomas Jefferson served as vice president from 1797 to 1801 under President John Adams, following an electoral outcome where he finished second in votes, as was the custom at the time for the runner-up to become vice president. This era was marked by intense political rivalry between the Federalists, led by Adams and Alexander Hamilton, and the Democratic Republicans, headed by Jefferson himself. The vice presidency, therefore, placed Jefferson in a uniquely challenging position. Officially, he was the second highest executive officer, yet he was also the leader of the opposition. Jefferson's tenure as vice president was characterized by his philosophical and political disagreements with President Adams' policies, including the Alien and Sedition Acts, which Jefferson vehemently opposed as violations of the First Amendment rights. This opposition led to his and James Madison's secret drafting of the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, which posited that states could nullify federal laws deemed unconstitutional, a radical defense of states' rights in response to federal overreach. The election of 1800 was one of the most contentious and influential in American history, often referred to as the Revolution of 1800. Jefferson stood as the Democratic-Republican candidate against the incumbent John Adams. The campaign was bitterly fought and deeply personal, with significant implications for the direction of the young nation. This election was revolutionary not just for its heated rhetoric but also for its outcome and aftermath. The electoral votes resulted in a tie between Jefferson and his running mate, Aaron Burr, leading to a deadlock that moved the decision to the House of Representatives. After intense lobbying and numerous ballots, Jefferson was finally elected president. This election marked the first peaceful transfer of power between parties via an electoral process in American history, setting a precedent for future transfers of power. Jefferson's vice presidency and his election as president in 1800 were crucial for several reasons. They highlighted the evolving nature of American political parties and the electoral system, tested the young nation's commitment to peaceful transitions of power, and underscored the growing pains of a democracy trying to define itself. Jefferson himself viewed his victory as a return to the true spirit of the Revolution of 1776, aiming to restore the Republican ideals that he felt were being eroded under Federalist rule. As we reflect on this transformative period in Jefferson's life and in American history, we see the enduring significance of these events. They are a testament to the complexities of governance and the resilience of the American democratic experiment. Jefferson's role during these years underscores his profound impact on the nation's direction, emphasizing his deep commitment to liberty and Republican principles. Thomas Jefferson's ascent to the presidency in 1801 marked a significant shift in the American political landscape, emphasizing democratic principles and a vision of an agrarian-oriented America. His first term as president, from 1801 to 1805, was characterized by substantial domestic and foreign policy initiatives that aimed to reshape the government according to Jeffersonian ideals. One of Jefferson's most significant domestic actions was the reduction of the national debt and the scaling down of the military, reflecting his belief in limited government. He implemented these changes through budget cuts and a reduction in government personnel, asserting that a large bureaucracy and military could threaten liberty and Republican values. In foreign affairs, Jefferson faced challenges that tested his diplomatic principles and administrative skills. The most notable was the Barbary Wars, conflicts with the Barbary states in North Africa, which were demanding tribute from American merchant ships. Jefferson refused to pay, leading to naval engagements that marked the first U.S. military actions overseas. This decisiveness helped establish American naval power and protected U.S. interests abroad. The hallmark of Jefferson's first term, however, was the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. This acquisition doubled the size of the United States, purchasing the vast territory from France for $15 million, a deal negotiated by Robert Livingston and James Monroe. Jefferson was initially concerned about the constitutional authority of the executive to make such a purchase, but he ultimately supported the deal for its vast potential to expand the agrarian base of the nation, which he believed was the backbone of American democracy. The Louisiana Purchase had enormous implications for the United States, including the expansion of territory, resources, and the eventual increase in power. It also set the stage for westward expansion, which Jefferson further encouraged through the commissioning of the Lewis and Clark expedition to explore and map the new territories. Jefferson's first term was not without its controversies, including debates over his constitutional authority and the political ramifications of his policies. His advocacy for states' rights and a decentralized federal government resonated strongly with the agrarian electorate but caused friction in the more industrializing regions. Despite these challenges, Jefferson's policies during his first term were largely successful in promoting his vision of a democratic-republican government, reducing federal overreach, and expanding the country's geographical and economic horizons. Reflecting on Jefferson's first term as president, we observe a leader deeply committed to the principles of republicanism, who managed to navigate the complexities of both domestic and international pressures with a clear vision. His presidency during these years laid the groundwork for America's future development and demonstrated the practical applications of his philosophical beliefs in governance. As we consider the scope of his achievements and the controversies they engendered, we gain a deeper understanding of Jefferson's enduring impact on the trajectory of the United States. Thomas Jefferson's second term as President of the United States, spanning from 1805 to 1809, was marked by significant achievements and formidable challenges. This period was characterized by deepening political divisions, complex international affairs, and contentious domestic policies, reflecting the growing pains of a young nation on the world stage. One of Jefferson's most controversial actions during his second term was the implementation of the Embargo Act of 1807. This legislation halted all American exports in response to British and French interference with U.S. merchant ships during the Napoleonic Wars. Jefferson intended the embargo as a peaceful measure to avoid war and pressure Britain and France to respect American neutrality and commercial rights. However, the act had widespread negative economic impacts across the United States, particularly harming American port towns and the economy at large. The Embargo Act was deeply unpopular and led to significant smuggling and political opposition, especially from Federalist strongholds in the Northeast. Jefferson faced intense scrutiny and criticism during his second term, not only for the economic fallout of the Embargo Act but also for what many perceived as an overreach of executive power. Critics argued that Jefferson, who had championed states' rights and a limited federal government, was contradicting his own principles by enforcing a federal embargo that affected local economies and individual liberties. This period highlighted the tensions inherent in American democracy, where ideals often clashed with practical governance needs and international realities. Internationally, Jefferson continued to navigate the troubled waters of foreign policy, dealing with ongoing threats and negotiations with European powers. Domestically, his second term also focused on issues related to Native American relations. Jefferson advocated for the assimilation of Native Americans into American agriculture and society, a policy mixed with paternalistic intentions and the harsh realities of displacement and cultural erosion. His administration continued to negotiate numerous treaties with Native tribes, often resulting in significant loss of land for these communities. Jefferson's second term was also marked by conflicts with the judiciary, particularly following the attempt to repeal the Judiciary Act of 1801, which had expanded federal courts and appointed many so-called midnight judges by his predecessor, John Adams. Jefferson and his Democratic-Republican allies viewed the act and appointments as a Federalist attempt to control the judiciary. This led to efforts to impeach several judges, most notably Justice Samuel Chase, reflecting the ongoing political battle for control of the federal judiciary. Reflecting on Jefferson's second term, we see a presidency that grappled with the contradictions between idealism and the realities of governance. The challenges of this period, economic, political, and social, underscored the complexities of leading a diverse and growing nation. Despite the controversies and criticisms, Jefferson's actions during these years continued to shape the course of American history, laying foundational policies and expanding the geographic and political boundaries of the United States. His presidency remains a study in the balance between national interests, presidential power, and the enduring values of liberty and democracy. As we consider his legacy, it is crucial to recognize both his visionary contributions and the contentious policies that tested the resilience of America's democratic institutions. After serving 2 terms as the President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson retired to Monticello, his beloved home in Virginia, in 1809. However, retirement did not mark the end of his contributions to public life or his intellectual pursuits. Jefferson's post-presidency years were filled with personal projects, educational initiatives, and ongoing influence in political thought. These years were not just a retreat into private life but a continuation of his public service in different capacities. Jefferson spent much of his retirement at Monticello, where he focused on managing his extensive estate. Despite his deep involvement in politics, Jefferson was first and foremost a planter, and his home reflected his interests in agriculture, architecture, and innovation. He continued to experiment with new agricultural techniques and designs, improving the yield of his farms and the design of his home. Monticello was not merely a residence but a laboratory for Jefferson's ideas about agriculture, sustainability, and architectural beauty. Even in retirement, Jefferson remained deeply engaged in the political discourse of the young nation. He corresponded with many of the leading political figures of the day, offering advice and sharing his views on governance, liberty, and the evolving American political landscape. His letters were a rich source of philosophical and practical guidance for the next generation of American leaders, reflecting his enduring commitment to the principles of the Republic. Perhaps Jefferson's most significant contribution in his post-presidency years was the founding of the University of Virginia in 1819. He envisioned a public university that would be free from religious doctrine and open to all white male citizens of the state, reflective of the limitations of his era. Jefferson played a crucial role in designing the curriculum, the physical layout of the university, and even the day-to-day operations. The University of Virginia was a manifestation of his lifelong commitment to education as a cornerstone for an informed and active citizenry. Throughout his retirement, Jefferson faced personal challenges, including significant financial difficulties that eventually led to the sale of his beloved Monticello. Despite these challenges, he remained a respected figure and a touchstone for debates on democracy, governance, and human rights. His ongoing influence on American education, politics, and culture underscores the depth of his intellectual legacy. Thomas Jefferson's post-presidency years were a testament to his unyielding dedication to improvement of self, estate, and country. His contributions during this period solidified his status as a visionary thinker and relentless advocate for education and democratic governance. As we reflect on Jefferson's later years, we see a life devoted to the pursuit of knowledge and the betterment of society, a life that continued to resonate with the ideals of the Enlightenment and the foundational principles of America. His legacy at Monticello and the University of Virginia continues to inspire discussions on liberty, education, and civic responsibility. Thomas Jefferson's relationship with slavery is one of the most controversial and critically examined aspects of his legacy. As a plantation owner in Virginia, Jefferson owned hundreds of slaves throughout his life, yet he is also known for his contradictory expressions against the institution of slavery. This complex relationship highlights the contradictions that defined much of Jefferson's life in the early years of the American Republic. Jefferson's views on slavery were paradoxical. In his writings, notably in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, he condemned the slave trade and blamed King George III for imposing it upon the colonies. In Notes on the State of Virginia, Jefferson expressed moral opposition to slavery, discussing its detrimental effects on both enslaved people and slave owners. Yet, despite these expressed views, Jefferson remained a slave owner throughout his life and benefited economically from the institution. The most notable and personal aspect of Jefferson's connection with slavery involves Sally Hemings, an enslaved woman at Monticello who bore several children widely believed to be Jefferson's. The relationship between Jefferson and Hemings has been the subject of extensive historical debate and analysis, pointing to the deeply personal connections that Jefferson had with the institution of slavery. Jefferson's actions and writings on slavery have ignited a historical debate that centers on his legacy as a champion of liberty and a simultaneous perpetuator of slavery. Historians and scholars have explored various aspects of his life to understand how someone so articulate about human rights could fail to apply these principles to all individuals universally. Some argue that Jefferson's inability to disentangle himself from slavery was a reflection of broader societal norms and personal economic dependency on the institution. Others critique him more harshly, pointing out that his actions, or lack thereof, contributed to the perpetuation of slavery in America, highlighting a significant moral failing. Throughout his political career, Jefferson made several proposals regarding the gradual abolition of slavery. He supported the banning of the importation of enslaved people and proposed a plan for the gradual emancipation and colonization of African Americans outside of the United States. However, none of these proposals were realized in his lifetime, and he freed only a few of his enslaved people. The discussion of Jefferson and slavery is essential in understanding the complexities of his character and the contradictions of his time. Jefferson embodies the profound contradictions that can exist within a person, espousing liberty for all while owning and benefiting from the labor of enslaved individuals. This duality provides a lens through which we can explore the broader contradictions of American history, particularly the ideals of freedom and equality juxtaposed against the reality of systemic racial oppression. As we reflect on Jefferson's legacy, it is crucial to engage with these complexities, not to diminish his contributions but to present a fuller, more nuanced understanding of the man and the times in which he lived. This examination invites a deeper consideration of the ongoing impacts of slavery and the challenges of aligning moral and practical choices in the fabric of America. Thomas Jefferson, a man deeply influenced by the Enlightenment, held a complex set of philosophies and beliefs that shaped his actions both as a private citizen and a public official. His views on freedom, education, government, and human rights are integral to understanding his contributions to American society and his enduring legacy. Religion. Jefferson is often noted for his strong stance on the separation of church and state, which stemmed from his broader Enlightenment beliefs that emphasized reason and science over religious doctrine. He was a proponent of religious freedom, authoring the Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom, which disestablished the Church of England in Virginia and forbade state support for any religious opinions. This document reflects his belief in the necessity of a secular state to ensure freedom of belief for all individuals. Education. Jefferson viewed education as essential for the health of the Republic. He believed that a well-informed electorate was crucial to the preservation of liberty and democracy. To this end, he founded the University of Virginia, envisioning it as an academic village free from religious doctrine where students could learn under the guidance of learned professors. This institution was one of his proudest achievements and reflects his commitment to education as a lifelong pursuit necessary for good citizenship. Government. Jefferson's political philosophy was characterized by his support for a limited government that allowed the maximum possible freedom for its citizens. He was wary of too much government power, believing it could lead to tyranny. His presidency and policies were thus geared towards reducing the size of the federal government and empowering state governments, in line with his belief in the principles of federalism. Jefferson left behind a wealth of quotes that encapsulate his philosophies and continue to be cited in discussions about freedom, governance, and human rights. One of his most famous quotes, "I cannot live without books," reflects his belief in education and self-improvement as lifelong processes. Another well-known statement, "The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants," emphasizes his view that active and sometimes radical engagement is necessary to preserve and renew the freedoms of a nation. Thomas Jefferson's philosophies and beliefs, derived from a deep engagement with Enlightenment thinkers and his own reflections on human and civic responsibility, have made a significant impact on American institutions and ideals. While his views and actions were sometimes contradictory, as most clearly seen in his stance on slavery versus his pronouncements on liberty and equality, his intellectual legacy in areas like religious freedom, public education, and government structure is profound. As we explore these facets of his philosophy, we gain insights not only into the complexities of his character but also into the foundational ideas that continue to influence American society today. As we reflect on the comprehensive arc of Thomas Jefferson's life and contributions, it's important to consider the multifaceted legacy he left behind, a legacy that continues to resonate in modern American society and beyond. This section explores how Jefferson's ideas have been interpreted, the debates they've sparked in contemporary times, and their enduring influence on American ideals. Jefferson's imprint on American political philosophy and practice is indelible. As the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, he articulated a vision of human rights that has become a universal standard for justice and liberty. His assertion that all men are created equal has been a rallying cry for various civil rights movements throughout American history. Furthermore, his contributions to establishing a democratic framework through his roles as Secretary of State, Vice President, and President have helped shape the governance structure of the United States. However, Jefferson's legacy is not without its controversies, particularly regarding his views and actions on slavery. His ownership of slaves and the ethical contradictions it presents have led to significant reevaluation of his stature as a proponent of liberty and human rights. This aspect of his life has sparked debates among historians, educators, and activists, influencing how his legacy is taught in schools and represented in public spaces. In recent years, there has been a movement to confront more critically the histories of historical figures like Jefferson. This includes discussions on how monuments and memorials dedicated to him should reflect the complexities of his contributions and shortcomings. These debates are part of a broader reckoning with America's historical narratives, examining the extent to which they align with the ideals they purportedly espouse. Despite the controversies, Jefferson's ideas about democracy, education, and the rights of individuals continue to influence modern American thought and policy. His advocacy for a public education system as a bulwark against tyranny is more relevant than ever in today's global push for educational access and reform. Additionally, his belief in the separation of church and state remains a foundational principle in ongoing debates about the role of religion in public life. Jefferson's ideas on government, rights, and individual freedoms are continually debated and tested in legal and political arenas, affirming their lasting relevance. His vision for America as a land of opportunity and self-governance continues to inspire discussions about national identity and civic responsibility. Thomas Jefferson's legacy is a complex tapestry woven from his revolutionary ideas and actions, tinged with his personal contradictions and the realities of his time. As we consider his impact on history, it's crucial to engage with both his achievements and the controversies that accompany them. This balanced examination not only enriches our understanding of Jefferson himself but also informs our ongoing discourse on equality, freedom, and the nature of democracy. Jefferson's life and work provoke us to reflect on the enduring questions of how we balance the ideals of our founders with the imperatives of moral progress and social justice. As we bring our exploration of Thomas Jefferson's life and legacy to a close, we are reminded of the complexity of historical figures and the enduring impact they can have on future generations. Jefferson's life was a tapestry of profound intellectual achievements and significant moral contradictions, each thread contributing to the broader narrative of American history. Thomas Jefferson's role as a founding father of the United States, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and a president who doubled the size of the nation through the Louisiana Purchase marks him as a pivotal figure in shaping the early course of the United States. His vision for America as a republic rooted in agricultural self-sufficiency and governed by an educated citizenry continues to influence American cultural and political thought. His efforts to establish a system of public education and his staunch advocacy for religious freedom and the separation of church and state have left a lasting imprint on American society. Reflecting on Jefferson's life offers us valuable lessons in the power and limits of leadership and the complexities of human virtue. His own contradictions, most notably his views on liberty and equality juxtaposed with his status as a slave owner, challenge us to consider the discrepancies between ideals and actions that can exist within a single individual. These contradictions invite a deeper examination of how we evaluate historical figures, encouraging a nuanced understanding that acknowledges both contributions and flaws. Jefferson's enduring influence also prompts us to reflect on the importance of leadership in times of change. His ability to articulate a vision for the new nation and his role in its early governance remind us of the impact thoughtful leadership can have on a country's trajectory. Yet, his shortcomings remind us that leaders are products of their time, and they often fall short of their ideals. The ideals Jefferson championed, democracy, education, and human rights, are as relevant today as they were in his time. The principles outlined in the Declaration of Independence continue to serve as a benchmark for freedom and justice worldwide. However, the ongoing debates about his legacy and the reevaluation of historical figures in contemporary discourse highlight the need to continually reassess our history through the lens of present-day values and insights. In closing, Thomas Jefferson's life serves as a powerful study in the duality of human nature and the complexities of historical legacy. As we navigate the challenges of our own time, the lessons we draw from his life can inspire us to strive for greater integrity and inclusivity in our efforts to uphold and advance the ideals upon which America was founded. Let us take forward the best of Jefferson's visions while remaining vigilant and critical of the shortcomings, ensuring that our pursuit of liberty and justice becomes ever more inclusive and equitable. Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude our journey through the life and legacy of Thomas Jefferson, we carry with us not only a richer understanding of his historical significance but also valuable lessons that can guide us in our daily lives. Jefferson once said, "I like the dreams of the future better than the history of the past." This forward-looking perspective encourages us all to envision a better future, one that we can actively shape through our choices and actions. It reminds us that while history offers us lessons, our actions today create the history of tomorrow. In your own lives, embrace the power of continuous learning and improvement that Jefferson so passionately advocated. Strive to educate yourselves, not just in formal settings but in the broader school of life. Engage with different cultures, ideas, and disciplines to enrich your perspectives and understanding. Moreover, remember the importance of active participation in your communities and governance. Jefferson believed deeply in the power of an informed citizenry as the backbone of a strong republic. By staying informed and involved, you contribute to a vibrant, functional society that upholds the ideals of democracy and justice. Lastly, let us all reflect on the complexities of human nature, as exemplified by Jefferson himself. Recognize that each of us carries contradictions and strive to align your actions more closely with your ideals. In doing so, you honor not only Jefferson's legacy but also contribute to creating a world that values integrity and the continuous pursuit of equality and justice. As you leave today, take these reflections with you, and let them inspire you to dream of and work towards a future that you will be proud to be part of. Let us be architects of a tomorrow that learns from the past but is not bound by it. Let us go forward with hope and determination. Thank you for your engagement and thoughtful participation in today's lecture.